Hello everyone, welcome to the last ESAT M1 chapter of probability. I will do the basic technical definitions of probability a bit later, but first let us talk about what probability is. Probability is basically the chance of something happening, right? And probability is expressed either in percentages or as a number between 0 and 1. An event that has zero chance of occurring, that is an impossible event. 0 is assigned to impossible events and 1 is assigned to sure events. In ESAT, the probability problems that you find will either be of conditional type or they will be linked together with the counting principles that we have discussed in chapter 1. The counting principles relate a little bit to permutation and combination, so just make sure that you consider all possible cases and then you take the favorable cases, divide those two, you will get your probability. In the conditional probability type problems, there are some questions which will be easily solvable if you draw a frequency tree diagram. I have an example in my notes that I'll show you later, but first let us understand what a frequency tree is. Frequency tree is used to organize data in branches showing how a group is split. If there is a particular event occurring with multiple outcomes, you label each branch and each outcome to get a visual overview of what the question wants. We will look into an example for this later. First, let us start with an easy problem. Matthew has a spinner. The spinner has only a red section, a blue section, and a yellow section. Matthew thinks that the spinner may be biased. Okay, so he spins the spinner 50 times and records the colors that the spinner lands on. Show the outcomes of these 50 spins. Here are the outcomes: red, blue, yellow, total 50. Use the outcomes of 50 spins to estimate the probability of landing on each of the three colors. This should be quite easy. This illustrates the fundamental formula for probability, which is number of favorable cases divided by the number of total cases should give you the probability. How many red sections turn up? 19. Total 50. So 19 by 50 for red, 15 by 50 for blue, and 16 by 50 for yellow. Do you believe that the spinner is biased? Well, nothing depends on us. It all depends on what Matthew thinks. It would seem that all of these probabilities, 19 by 50, 15 by 50, and 16 by 50, are almost of the same magnitude. The spinner is probably not biased. If there is a bias, you will consistently see something appear more number of times by quite an order of magnitude. See, the probability that we obtain is basically the theoretical probability. So tossing a coin would mean half probability of getting a heads and half probability of getting tails. That doesn't mean that if you toss a coin twice, you will get one heads and one tails. Then the concept of toss would be irrelevant. That half relates to the fact that if you toss a coin sufficiently large number of times, the number of heads and tails will be almost equal. Alright, now looking at a few technical definitions. Sample space. Sample space gives you the set of all possible outcomes. For example, if you are tossing a fair coin, the set of all possible outcomes is heads and tails. Now, what is an outcome? So outcome is the single possible result of an experiment. Single being the keyword. There has to be one outcome. Okay. What is an experiment? So experiment is a repeatable action or procedure that produces outcomes from a well-defined set of possible outcomes. Remember the word possible, because if your experiment gives you a fixed value, that is not treated as an experiment under probability. For example, if you are trying adding 2 and 2, you know that the answer will be 4. So that is not an experiment in this chapter. Okay, because the outcome is fixed and wherever we do it, whichever way we do it, it will be the same outcome 4. So this is not considered an experiment. Also, the experiment should be repeatable and it should produce the outcome from a set of possible outcomes. A set of possible outcomes means there should be at least 2, right? So here as an example, if it is heads and tails, heads is one outcome and tails is one outcome. I have defined the outcome for you. This is the single possible result of an experiment. What is an event? An event is a subset of possible outcomes from the sample space. For example, getting an even number upon rolling a dice. So what is the sample space? 1 to 6. What is the event in this particular example? 2, 4 and 6. In a fair dice, all the outcomes are equally likely. So probability of getting a 1, a 2, a 3 or 4, 5, 6 is all 1 by 6. Equally likely means outcomes with the same probability. So examples, heads or tails. Now let us understand what theoretical probability is. Theoretical probability is calculated using mathematical reasoning instead of experiments. So basically you are looking into the logic of how the experiment functions and based on that you make a prediction of what the probability of a certain outcome could be. That is theoretical probability. When you are going to the field and actually conducting the experiment, that is known as experimental probability. What do I mean by this last statement? It is often the limiting case for experimental probability. By that I mean, whenever we do experiments, real life errors kick in. If we theoretically do infinite rules in an experiment, then we would get closer to the theoretical probability. Whatever happens in real life is the experimental probability. The probability of an event is given as favorable outcomes divided by total outcomes, which is NE by NS. NE is the number of elements in the event space and NS is the number of elements in the sample space. Now, if we know the probability of an event, we can find out its expected frequency. So expected frequency is the number of times an event is predicted to occur. Expected frequency of an event is given as probability into the number of trials that has been conducted. So based on this, try this question. If a fair 6-sided die is rolled 90 times, how many times would it be expected to land on a 5? So what is the probability of getting a 5? 1 upon 6, because that is one of the possible outcomes. It is rolled 90 times. So the number of times we should expect a 5 is 1 by 6 into 90, 15. Of course, in any real life experiment, this may or may not occur, but theoretically, that's the value. An even number, So from 1 to 6 there are 3 even numbers and 3 odd numbers, so it should be exactly half, 45. A square number, the number of squares between 1 to 6 are 2, right? So 1 and 4. All right, one more sum. A fair four-sided spinner has one section colored red, yellow, green and blue. Okay, 4 colors. If the spinner is spun 100 times, how many times yellow can be expected? Explain why the actual number of yellow in 100 spins might not be exactly the number expected. If the spinner is spun 100 times, how many times would yellow be expected? So 1/4, because it's fair. So 25 should be expected. Explain why the actual number of yellow might not be exactly the number expected, because that's the difference between theoretical probability and experimental probability. Now let us talk about probability scales. So sometimes in questions, the probability might be given to you in form of a scale. The scale can be marked from 0 to 1 or 0 to 100%. Like if a probability is divided into 5 specific divisions, 0 would be impossible event, 1 would be certain, 50% would be events, likely would be 75% and unlikely would be 25%. Exhaustive events are a set of events such that at least one of them must occur whenever an experiment is performed. So for example, rolling events and rolling odds on a fair dice. I'll give you an example that is not an exhaustive event. Rolling events and rolling square numbers. So if that happens, then there is a number from 1 to 6 that is not even and not a square, 5. So that means these two events do not cover the entire sample space, therefore they are not exhaustive. Mutually exclusive. 2 or more events are mutually exclusive if they cannot occur at the same time. Heads and tails. So if you toss a coin, you cannot get heads and tails on the same trial. 2 events A and A complement will be exhaustive and mutually exclusive. Makes sense? Because if I set the event as A happening and A not happening, then A and A complement add up to the universal set, which means they are exhaustive. A and A complement are, of course, by definition mutually exclusive. That means if A happens, A complement cannot happen and vice versa. Probability of A plus probability of A complement equals 1. And just remember as a tip, sometimes calculating probability of A complement is easier. Find probability of A using 1 minus P of A complement. This is strictly an operational hint. If you feel like figuring out P of A complement is easier, do that. Then at the end, do not forget to subtract it from 1, because P of A complement will also be in the options. Alright, question. 2 four-sided unbiased dice have sides 1, 2, 3, 4. Draw a sample space diagram. Ignore this. How many of the possible outcomes have the same score on both dice? How many of the possible outcomes have a total score of 5 or more? How many of the possible outcomes have a total score of 1? So here we are looking into 2 four-sided dice. Okay, so 2 four-sided dice means you will have to draw a grid of 4 by 4. So the grid elements will be 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3 and 4, 4. So how many of the possible outcomes have same score on both dice? So it will be 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. How many of the possible outcomes have a total score of 5 or more? So 5 or more, just go row by row. In the first row, 1, 4. In the second row, 2, 3 and 2, 4. In the third row, 3, 2, 3, 3 and 3, 4. In the fourth row, all the elements. So 1 from the first row, 2 from the second row, 3 from the third row and 4 from the fourth row. So that will be 10. The next part, how many of the possible outcomes have a score of 1? That's not possible, right? Because the minimum roll that I can get is 1, 1. Therefore, the minimum sum should be 2. So there should be none, 0. This is an impossible event. Alright, let us now check all the answers before moving on to the next theoretical section. Alright, now we will learn addition of probabilities and when can be added. If A and B are mutually exclusive, only then can they be added. So P of A union B, which is the same as P of A or B, is written as PA plus BB. If they are not mutually exclusive, then P of A union B is given as P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection B. That is a common portion between A and B. Probabilities can be multiplied if A and B are independent. Independent means the occurrence of one event does not impact the occurrence of the other. So P of A intersection B will be P of A into P of B. Conditional probability is the probability of event A occurring given event B has already occurred. So this is denoted as P of A conditional B. Okay, do not write it as P of A by B. P of A conditional B is P of A intersection B divided by P of B. Of course, P of B has to be non-zero. If B is an impossible event, that means P of B is 0, then the probability of A occurring given event B has occurred, this statement makes no sense because B cannot occur. So the definition stops and therefore this condition has been excluded. If A and B are independent, P of A conditional B is just P of A. So if A and B are independent, then the probability of A occurring given B has occurred is just P of A because A has nothing to do with B. Now remember, in the beginning of the class, I taught you the frequency and tree diagrams. Here is the sum that I was referring to. A bag contains only red and blue counters. There are 7 red counters and 3 blue counters. 2 counters are selected at random without replacement. That means you select one, do not put it back in the bag and then select the next one. In these sums, it is better to draw a tree diagram. So in the first pick, you could select a red counter with the probability 7 upon 10. In the second pick, you can select a red counter with the probability 6 upon 9. Why? Because 1 has already been picked and therefore the remaining part will be the probability of picking B the second time. When you picked for the first time, the probability of picking red was 7 by 10. So the probability of picking blue would be 3 by 10. Picking blue again, the probability would be 2 upon 9. That is because you have already picked a blue, so the number of blue counters has decreased by 1 and the total number of counters has also decreased by 1. If probability of picking a blue counter is 2 upon 9, then the probability of picking a red counter for the second time should be 7 upon 9. So both counters are red. You will do 7 by 10 times 6 upon 9, reduce it to lowest terms, give your answer. At least one counter is blue. All the cases involving at least one blue, or you calculate the probability of getting no blues and then subtract it from 1. That will probably be much easier. So what is the probability of getting no blues? That is only one case where you draw both reds. So you have done that in option A, subtract that from 1, you will get your answer for B. One counter of each color is selected. So that is always probability of red, blue and blue, red. So these branches, add them, you will get your answer. Visualizing them via a tree diagram makes it very easy. Alright, the last question. The last question says the tree diagram shows the probability of a test for a particular bacterium being positive and the probability that the bacterium is actually present. When you conduct the test, the probability of the test being positive is 0.2. When the test returns a positive result, the probability of the test being correct is 0.9. That means the test was positive and the bacteria is actually present. That is 0.9. The probability of the test showing a false positive is 0.1. The probability of the test showing a negative is 0.8. And when the test shows a negative, the probability that the bacteria is not there, that means the test is correct, is 0.93. The probability of showing a false negative is 0.07. So what do we have to do? We have to figure out the probability given that the bacteria is present. What is the probability of a positive test result? So we know that the bacterium is finally present. So what should be the total number of cases? That should be the probability along the pathways of both the present counters. So it could be positive and present, it could be negative and present. Denominator would be 0.2 into 0.9 and 0.8 into 0.07. What is the probability of a positive test result? That is just positive into present. So that will be 0.2 into 0.9. Alright, simplify this and you should get your answer. So present and positive plus present and negative, because you have to trace how the bacteria is present via both the paths. Simplify this and you will end up with 45 by 59. That concludes the chapter on probability. This was the last chapter for ESAT M1. From the next week onwards, we will continue with the chapters for ESAT M2. If you need help with any of the chapters, do not hesitate to book a class with me using the link in the description. If you need more practice, I have attached a sample of my book along with this video. Try out a few sums. If you like it, check out the full book using the Amazon links given in the description. With that being said, I'll end this video here. Thank you all for joining and I'll see you in the next video where we start ESAT M2.